I guess we need to start off with a little bit of the background history for the record about where you're from, how you got started in the club business, what brought you into that, what kind of a brief history of Bruce Chambers that brought you to Jacksonville.
Started working clubs when I was going to college. Just kind of got in the blood, and I never got it out.
Well, what having like to tell me like exactly like do you remember the point like when you were in college that what got you into it? Like what worked you into that point of actually
hey,
like
do this
yeah
for the rest of my life.
No, I think it's I
or
think
something that said I want to do this.
I was just going to school, and it's like.
Did you go out to a club and somebody offered you a job?
Well, it's like any starving artist. You know, you went to get your waiter job.
Right.
You know, it just so happened I got a job as a bar back, and from there I actually went to work on the front door. Was the doorman, and my roommate was a DJ actually from Jacksonville, and got into DJing from there, and for many years remained a DJ through the periods of about 78, 79 till about 85. Was the DJ.
And where was that at?
It actually started here in Jacksonville at a club called Zachary's on Cesare Boulevard, which was a real strong club back then. It was all during the disco era.
Mm-hmm.
From here I went back to Atlanta, and then to Tampa, and then to Charlotte, and Richmond, Virginia, and fun clubs in all those areas. Once I got into spinning and really got into the music of it, it was the big clubs I was looking to work. It was the back streets, the Limelights, and that sort of thing, which eventually got to those points, and because there was that music element in those clubs that you could play that you actually couldn't play in the so-called straight clubs. They were more disco duck and not the European sound that we were looking for and that sort of thing. About the time I was coming out of it, early to mid '80s, and really getting more into the management side of the clubs and the creation of clubs and what I thought clubs ought to be and that sort of thing. Was when house music just started peering out and really starting to come out of that New York market and the little garages and that sort of thing. But that's how I got started. And in the interims there, sometimes I would try to do other things, because I'd finished college and I have a 2-year degree in police administration, and tried to get into that side of it, but could never stand it, Just couldn't stand being in the office and that sort of thing. I just had to be in a club something.
That's cool. So what ended up bringing you down here? How did that?
Had actually been owning and operating other clubs in different areas of the country, and the club business in particular. Most people think that the club business is went up at 9 o'clock, so you go to work at 8 o'clock, you open up the doors, turn on the music, get everybody in there partying, and that's what it's about. And it's not. It's literally, and well, we cut back on it now, but I mean it's 6 days a week. We come in here, we're in here by 9 o'clock in the morning. We work all day, generally all night long. On the nights we're open, we're all working 100 hours or better a week and that sort of thing. And I had come out of the club business for some of those reasons, just looking for a better quality of life, and taken another corporate job, but more in the food and beverage and entertainment side of it. And it moved me to the Ocala area. I was working for George Steinbrenner in some of the hotels that he owned, and overseeing his food and beverage operations. Wasn't real happy. That was another 100 or better hours a week trying to watch after him and his hotels and stuff. And found a job opportunity came up at a beach resort in Ponte Vedra, and ended up taking the job and going out there. It was about 30 hours a week and working on the beach all day long, and it was a great job. However, by the time that I got there, they decided they were selling that operation, which they ended up selling that operation to Marriott at Sawgrass. And all of the management and the crew was coming out of there. And just about that time, a headhunter, a job service, came looking for me and said that they were looking for someone to come into a club here in town, which thank God happened to be Club 5, and needed somebody to run it. And the interview started from there, and I took the job at Club 5.
How long ago? That was 2.5 years?
2.5 years ago.
When you initially came into Club 5, what were your first thoughts?
I actually came over here one night. They contacted me and told me what they were looking for, and told me about Club 5. And I had been in town, I think, about 6 months, and I really hadn't been out. I was staying out at the beach, and, working the job out there and enjoying that quality of life of kind of being a beachy. And I hadn't been in a town, but they told me about the club, and I came to check it out. And I came on a Thursday night. I came to the area, and I drove around the area for a while checking it out and stuff, and just immediately fell in love with the 5 Points area. It was really cool, and the historic houses and the shops in this district. Didn't know upon arriving that it was an old theater, which was incredible when I drove up to it. A couple of things scared me when I got here. There were naturally 3 police cars sitting at the front door. I came up to the operation, and coming into something, I'd start picking it apart and looking for the things that, well, I would have done this, I'd have done that, I'd have done that, and trying to keep an open mind. But I came in, and I got here early, and very few people in the place. But what I saw was must have been a dozen, if not more, security people in the club. And they had these shirts on, there's security and shit all over them, and security all over their shirts, and 3 police cars at the front door, and there were sections of the club that I could see that they weren't using. The club was in a pretty down state as far as the way it looked and that sort of thing inside. It was an old stately theater, and
Was the backstage closed at that time?
the backstage was closed at that time. They had a big chain link fence on part of the stage, and a little rickety stage bar set off to the side of it. And it was painted blue inside with a big red stripe on it or something. I kept envisioning, the stately theater and doing it in red and velvets and all that sort of thing. And but my first reaction in coming into the room, I went up into the balcony and I stood, and I just watched the room for a while, and I watched the crowd come in, and literally stayed from probably 9:30 till 2 in the morning, and watched the whole night and the operation, how it ran and stuff. And it was just at one point of the night that I'm standing on the balcony and watching it. Also, it was like most of the light show didn't work, and I'm up there, I'm peering through the ceilings looking what's up there. I see all these lights and all this sound and everything else, but maybe a fourth of it worked in the room. But there came at one point of the night when I can't remember what song it was, but it was something strong. It was a dance song. It was high energy, and no discredit to anybody, but the music that night was just was horrible. But there was one point when it just kind of all gelled at one time, and the lights kind of started to work, and it was the right music, and you could see and just feel the room of what it could be. And that look from that balcony has always been the most remarkable place in this club. And immediately got up the next morning about 6 o'clock and jumped on the phone and said, yes, the room is right. I think I can help you out. And we sat down and started interviewing from there. And I'll tell you, I kind of looked at a couple other rooms in town just because of my background and owning and operating other clubs, and it doesn't get out of your system. And you always don't like to work for somebody else that you don't feel is taking things the way you want it. And I looked at the old Edge building and a place or two downtown and stuff. But even through the interviews, I went and checked out a couple of other places in town and clubs, just kind of getting back into that nightlife thing and what the city was doing and all that sort of thing. And I just knew that Club 5 was the room. It really was. Am I too wordy?
No,
No,
not at
that
all.
was
Not at all.
Because I'm envisioning exactly what it was.
In a lot of ways,
Like a riot.
It was. It was just like that. I mean, there was just one point of standing on that balcony when I looked out there, and I was like, "Holy shit, they ain't doing the right thing with this room." You know, and stuff you ask me like that is it's emotional. Yeah.
I
I mean,
believe
this doesn't have to be in there, and you can put it in there, but look where it's come from there until now. You know, and there's not too very often that all of three of us don't stand there on that stage sometime or stand on that balcony and look out across the front and just go, "Oh, big shit, what have we done?"
Every Saturday night.
I believe at one point also we had a conversation, you had mentioned a relative worked here. Your grandfather?
Oh, in the history of this room?
Yeah, in the history of this theater. That's right. That's right.
My mother and father grew up in Jacksonville, and my grandfather, during the Depression, my grandfather worked for the Seaboard Coastline all of his life, and during the Depression, to put food on the table, basically, it was my father's father, and he had 7 brothers and sisters. My grandfather used to stoke the boiler in the basement here to keep the theater warm during the Depression and stuff like that, which I thought was neat because my dad came by after we got into this thing and walked through the theater with me and told me that story. And him and my mother, when they met, what is this, Robert E. Lee down the street?
Robert E. Lee High School?
Robert E. Lee High School. They went to Robert E.
That's where we...
That's where we... They went to Robert E. Lee High School.
How funny.
They went to Robert E. Lee High School, and when they were dating, they used to come here and sit in the balcony and see movies and that sort of thing.
The heritage.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's meant to be.
He even actually brought to my attention, my father, movie director, very controversial, did the movies where he almost changed the whole direction of movies where it was almost like violence and big-breasted women and but one of his first films was shown in this movie theater, and the theater manager and the guy who ran the projector and somebody else was arrested, and the theater was shut down for showing his movies here. That's pretty cool. So I think it goes back.
Yeah. It's, oh man, see, this is the type of stuff that Jacksonville does need to do. It's exactly the kind of stuff. So when you came in here, when you took over as manager, was it how was it compared to what you thought when you got your first impressions of Club 5? How was it in contrast to what it actually was like trying to come in here? And were you expecting a hard road, or were you expecting?
I didn't know what to expect, and I was getting back into the club business, and I really hadn't been out of it that long, and really never wanted to be out of it that long. I had to do that quality of life thing for a while. But it's always tough coming into a place where you're totally going to take the direction of the club and just go somewhere else with it. But at the time that we came in here, it was pretty much in an all-time low. The owners at the time, which I don't mind saying, the Schultz family, which is a very influential family here in Jacksonville, and there's some history to that on how they found the theater and was able to get the ordinances and that sort of thing to be able to put liquor in here. They were wide open. They just, they gave me a full rein, and it was almost like the the pairing of them and myself was like heaven sent. You know, they didn't put any obstacles in my way or anything else. They openly financed everything that I wanted to do, and look at the results of it. You know, and it's all about them and what they have done for me since I've been in this town. And it's got us really to where we're at, and actually able to be open at times and things like that. It's always hard coming into an operation like this. You have the staff to consider here, and you want to review each one of them, who you're keeping, who you're not keeping, and you know, you start to get into the town, and you start to meet people, and you're trying to find out the direction of the town of what it needs and what it wants and what the people are really hurting for in a club and things of that nature. But luckily, through that period, I met people like yourself, and actually all the people that are around us here at the club. And for whatever reason, it's been magical since we've been here. I mean, it's not me, but it's the staff that's around me that's created what goes on around here. And there was just a void in Jacksonville and a need for it, and nobody was doing it. And it wasn't just Saturday night, it was Friday night, and you know, the other things of making this venue look like it needs to look and perform like it needs to perform, and the attitudes that are around it and everything else. And it's all clicked. It's all been great, even with the controversy.
I would say especially with the controversy.
Yeah, that's made it even better.
Well, one more question, and then we'll lead that into a segue about all the problems going on. What made you to decide to actually buy the club?
Most of the time,
How did that kind of sort of?
well, most of the time when I go into a club, and I've kind of in the past been known as a turnaround man, and you wouldn't believe the number of operations out there where most people come into to go open a club, and it's been their lifelong little like dream or something. And you actually see it out of a lot of northern people that move down to the south and go down there and open a club and all this sort of thing. And then they get into it and they realize, you know, what, you know, or they don't realize when they get into it and they go, oh my God, what's happened here, you know? And they've got all this money invested and they got a nice room, but they don't know the politics of it. They don't know the operations of running one of these things. And they basically thought they could open the door at 8 o'clock and turn on some music and there we are. And we're going to make a bunch of money. It's not like that.
That's another question I was going to ask, is I just wrote down, it's about what would you have to say to the people who think that club ownership is so glamorous? How cool
we'll
is it?
We'll talk about that in a minute. I'm known in the club business as a turnaround man. So you go into an ailing operation, you look at the demographics in the area, you try to figure out what the needs are, and you take it and you turn it. And part of that deal when I go in is, of course, the salary. And I'll either set up a deal where once I get it to a certain level and we get the bills paid off and all that sort of thing, that I start getting either a percentage, and generally that I always have first options to purchase. And once again, I go back to saying the fit was so good between myself and the Schultz family. It was just destined to be. It happened. They were comfortable. I was comfortable. Club was up and operating well. It's a burden to a family like that. And the time it's all worked out, it came to be. They put a deal together for me that I could do, and purchase the club and went on about our business.
Right on. Well, yeah, because I've actually had a bunch of people who are like, when are you gonna open up a club? When do you want to do it? And I'm like, dude, I've seen my chance in hell. I said I always wanted to open up a club. I remember since we saw Einstein, we were like, man, we need to open up our own club. This would be so cool.
Now working.
And now we're like,
so people come to me now. It'd be so cool when I open up my club. And I'm just
we're like, yeah, help yourself.
Yeah.
Go right ahead.
You let me know when
you have fun.
When you're pumping.
It won't last 2 minutes.
This is off the record, but actually, what somebody like you ought to do It's what they have in places. I consider ourselves a big club and that sort of thing, but when you're area like New York, or like, you know, the Limelight, or your Back Street in Atlanta, or the Garage, or Palladium, and places like that, I actually have a business manager. He just sits in here and does what I do. I'm in every aspect of what the hell goes on around here. I mean,
Right.
even to cleaning up sometimes during the day and building stage props and all that sort of thing. There's somebody like yourself that could go into an operation like that, and you had the management side, watching after the money, watching after the club,
Right.
that sort of thing, where you could go in and create.
Yeah, like seduction.
Yeah.
Promotions
Yeah.
director.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah.
Promotions director, marketing director, that
Yeah.
sort of thing, and just go in and create and had, you know.
That's the best thing for me, because
Oh,
I
yeah.
would never want to own. I mean, like,
And
I
you'd be
do
very
all
good
that
at
stuff.
it, you
I
know?
hate dealing with money. It's like
To put a staff around you and
Like the
say,
worst
you know,
part.
here's what I want to do, and go after it.
Yup.
Yeah.
Let's get to some controversy.
Okay.
What the hell happened?
Yeah. Do you think that all of this started with the Dub Tribe incident?
I hate to label that the Dub Tribe incident. You know, they didn't have nothing to do with it. They were.
Well, we'll say the night the Dub Tribe played it.
I don't mind you saying it,
However,
yeah. And I don't, you know, mind you coming out asking me that question, and then we kind of correct it from there. But it's not, you know, Dub Tribe was here that night.
It did seem to be the catalyst for the whole sort of turmoil that began. That was sort of the birth point of that. Because before that, it was almost you know, there wasn't the focus on from the newspaper articles with the pictures
Right.
of the ecstasy and all that kind of stuff. It really brought it out into the limelight.
Well, that whole thing was, excuse me, that whole thing had been in the works for a while. There was a thing going on in Florida. I believe it came out of Tallahassee in the governor's office. I don't know that for sure. But I also believe, and I don't know for sure, but that was like a federally funded situation, and it was going on all over Florida. They stated in the paper, and it was part of what was called Heat Rave. And Heat Rave was the government's attack on what the so-called designer drugs, the ecstasy, the GHB, the cocaine, and things of that nature. And they felt, and actually knew, I mean, as we all do, that it was that particular scene and that particular culture of the youth where the house music and the raves and all of that thing are saying, and raves almost, you know, or has become a dirty word, so to speak, that they were going after. They did it in just about every major city around Florida. And for Jacksonville, it was just earmarked to be at Club 5. We kind of brought the house scene out of the warehouses and the garage, and I don't know that that was a good or a bad thing. You know, it took it from the underground and brought it more commercial. My feelings on bringing it more commercial is that it enabled us to bring bigger and better talent into that scene. But as far as the Dub Tribe incident, it had been set up, planned. The media was on top of it, aware of it. They wanted to make a big splash out of it. They knew where to come to do that. It just so happened they planned it around the Dub Tribe situation because they knew that, you know, we were going to do a crowd of 2,000 or better to see Dub Tribe here. And most of the element they were looking for was going to be here that night.
Well, correct me if I'm wrong. Didn't they actually walk in the door with warrants for the arrests of the people that were taken out of
Most
there?
of it was all done. I don't think, in fact, I know, nobody that was arrested that night was arrested for selling drugs or consuming drugs or caught actually with the drugs on them. At that time,
That they didn't have a warrant for already.
they served 5 or 6 warrants that night for people that had already sold drugs undercover. It was a sting operation. They had the warrants in their hand. Could they have just taken those warrants and gone to those people's houses and stuff? I think so. I'm sure they had to have their addresses and all that sort of thing.
Right.
It wouldn't have made the impact that it made by them coming in here. Weirdly enough, of those 5 or 6 people that were arrested that night, and don't think that we're naive to it because we know that it goes on here and probably on their list and their list of warrants that they had, the 5 or 6 people that were arrested that night had actually sold the illegal drugs at other locations in town. And we got copies of the arrest reports and that sort of thing. So it was actually nobody that had done anything in Club 5. Now I'm sure in their warrants and their list of people they were looking for, they had purchased before in Club 5 and that sort of thing. But ironically, that's the way it came out. Where that night is concerned, I'll say this. Just to clarify matter. During that time, before that time, after that time, and at present, none of the Club 5 employees or anything has ever been arrested for selling drugs. We're always on top of that situation. We don't do that sort of thing around here and everything else. We know that it goes on in the club. We look for it. We have procedures and policies in place to prevent it. Wish that it didn't happen. But it happened when I was a kid. It'll happen when my kids are here and everything else. We do what we can to prevent it, but it's the way it goes. And I will say also too, they came in. They come in the tactic that they always come in. They're masked and armed and that sort of thing, and it scares the hell out of the room. However, they did it. They did it in somewhat of an orderly fashion. And I think as much as we don't like that thing to happen, the best thing of all is even though it stopped the evening for a little bit, they didn't close us down or anything like that. Never attempted to, threaten to, or anything else. They took care of their business and were able to let us go back into operation. I lost a lot of business that night. There were probably 1,000 people standing in line waiting to get in, and 1,500 people in the room. We lost a lot of business, but I saw after it happened that the people that were in the room stayed and partied, and a lot more people came in and stuff. Dove Tribe was really good when they came on and said, hey, what's up? And they brought a unity kind of to the room and what we went through and that sort of thing. And they said on stage, the drugs aren't good. It's not what this scene is about. It's about the music. And we went into the night from there and partied all night long.
They played for like 3 hours.
Played for like 3 hours, and it was just a beautiful, beautiful night. And it was about the music then and not about the drugs.
Absolutely.
I think everybody had thrown them away at that time.
But inherently, and I want to bring this up just on your side of it as well, and make sure it's mentioned, is that the real problem and probably some of the most damage that's done, can be done from a situation like that, is the way the local news media and print media handles that kind of thing. Because correct me if I'm wrong again, but didn't on like Monday morning the next week and on the paper, or that Sunday in the paper and everything, they announced that the club had been closed.
Yes.
And it was the shoddy way that they reported it that really does damage to business.
And that is so true. Here recently with some of the other arrests on the Saturday Night Situation, I'm sure we'll get into, they did the same thing, and it's not right. Their reporting ought to be done better. And they ought to stop and just come and talk to me sometime, or just ask me before they get into it. It's usually an after fact. They're all set up and ready to go. The reporting was bad. It made the front page. That was all intended to happen as far as the Heat Ray thing is concerned, and to bring it. They did it to bring the awareness to the public.
But they never reported that the club remained open after the raid, or that the band actually played, and that it was a full night, fully open. They actually reported that the club was closed down.
They didn't report any of the details that we just talked about.
Right.
And nobody ever actually came to you and said, hey, what happened on your side?
Not that night. Later in the week they did.
After the report had already run.
Yeah,
in the paper,
the report had already
after
run.
the damage was done.
Right.
And a similar situations have happened recently with the Chippendales, I guess. Well, you were actually arrested once before.
Why don't I just review
for the nipple incident?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you can have a question. It's like, let's review the arrest situations that's gone on.
Yeah. So since Dub Tribe.
Well, actually,
because the problems with that kind of with the drugs.
Was it the nipple situation before Dub Tribe?
Actually, there was a nipple situation before
Yeah.
Dub Tribe.
Was that before Dub Tribe?
Yeah.
Actually, it was before Dub Tribe. Right before Dub Tribe.
Well, let's actually, you know what? Let's do that under seduction, and we'll talk about the controversy with Saturday nights.
Okay.
We'll bring that up.
Cool.
Let's finish up with the whole kind of drug issue, I guess, as far as like.
And a little bit about the house scene.
Yeah, and the house scene and stuff like that, and what type of effects do you think that had? Did you see that have on the house scene after the Dub Tribe, the raid?
What kind of effect did it have on the house scene after the raid?
Or at least the scene that you could see from in the club, like how did the numbers drop? Did the attitude, how the attitude changed? Was it, and the policies that you had to enact due to the raid,
right,
and how it affected kind of your end of it and possibly the scene? Did you have to crack down? How did they kind of told you how you had to crack down? Was that during that?
Well, here's the effects that here's the effects mechanically that happened. Right after that happened, myself and Danny Wimmer from 618, which I think was the Paradome at the Milk Bar, or the Milk Bar at the time, whatever it was.
Milk Bar at Paradome.
Milk Bar at Paradome, that was. Went down and met with the JSO and their officials. And basically, what it did was open all of our eyes to a lot of what was going on. And even though we have procedures and policies in place, we're the hospitality industry, so we don't like to do things that's going to upset our patrons. We want our patrons to come and have a good time and that sort of thing. But we went down and met with JSO and their officials and got from them basically what they would like to see us doing to actually assist them in curtailing that drug situation. They gave us a list of things, and those list of things were they wanted to see the Vicks inhalers gone, the vapor rub itself, getting rid of the gas mask. They wanted the rub downs during the blowing up process done away with. There was even talk about the glow sticks and the bottled water, which really at that time decided that the glow sticks and the bottled water weren't part of the problem, and decided that they were okay. They wanted us to see us taking stronger measures, to even go to pat downs at the door to try to prevent that drug from coming in the door. Checking backpacks, it was all part of the pat down situation, which we did institute. Danny over at 618 is a smart guy. Our concerns were that if I instituted all of those measures, then I was going to run all of my crowd away and they were going to go over to 618. Danny thought if he instituted those measures, they were all going to run over here, and because they didn't want to be bothered by that thing. So what we did was basically got together and made a pact with each other that we were going to do those things together. We were the two prominent clubs in town that were bringing the big name DJs and that to town. He started it, I started it, we started working with the sheriff's office on keeping those measures in play and that sort of thing. I think the bust and all of those measures actually hurt our business. I know that they did over here. I know that Danny saw a cut down on his business over there. Um, I think it is a shame that one, the bust happened, that we had to start doing those measures, um, that that culture, that society, um, is so into that drug when they profess to be so into that music. And what is a shame about all that is that came to light, that came to realization from a group of people that said it's all about the love, it's all about the unity, it's all about the music. Once we started preventing the drug situation, once JSO came down on them and started getting hard on them, and they got nervous about it, it was almost like they'd rather take the drug situation somewhere else. And it came more about the drug and being able to go party and get high and listen to music as it did about coming and listening to music and dancing and enjoying the DJs and the creators of this music and everything else. That was a letdown for all of us. It wasn't about the music anymore, it was about the drug. And Danny saw it and I saw it, and a lot of people who truly believed in that crowd and that music, and that is attracted to that music, their words weren't what they said it was anymore. That's how it hurt all of us.
Yeah.
And since that time, we read and we hear and we talk about that element, and it's such a focus on it. We have seen a couple of places come and go where they're not doing those things. They're not taking the measures that we're taking to prevent it and watch out for it and stop those things. And those places are actually flourishing because the drug element is there. It's the music and the drug element. And that's a shame. That's not the way it was supposed to be. You go back and we kind of started talking about Dove Tribe. They are probably the biggest preachers of this is about the music, this is about the dance, this is about the atmosphere. It's not about the drugs, it's not about the kids getting hurt, it's not about the kids getting too high, not being responsible and things like that. It's just a shame. It really is.
So have you seen since then, because Dove Tribe was what, over a year ago?
Longer than that.
Yeah. It's been quite some time. When was that?
It was March of last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it's been over a year. A little bit over a year. How have you seen that? Any of that come back? Any of the love for the music come back? Or you still think it's still a prominent problem?
We saw it calm down a lot for a while. Here recently in some of my meetings with the JSO, they feel it's coming back. Actually, there's other places out there that are allowing it to come back, and they're on top of it. We still have all our measures in place and that sort of thing. I guess the bottom line of what you're asking me is, do I see people being any more responsible? Not really. I wish.
We all do. Do you think that there's any sort of, I guess in your own personal opinion, do you think that there is a possible final solution for that kind of thing, or do you just think it's going to be a vigilant battle?
I think it always has been. You know, I think the drug use always has been. The drugs today are different than when I was a kid. You know, almost sound like my dad sitting here talking about it, but the drugs today are different and they're bad, and there are a lot of kids getting hurt with them. When I was a kid, the drugs back then were bad, and they were getting hurt with them. I think it's going to be a constant battle. I think it's always going to be a battle, not just for people like myself and trying to be a good, responsible business person, but you know, in particular the government, law enforcement. I mean, look how much money they spend every year just trying to battle the drug problem in the United States. It's going to always be a problem.
Well, I guess just for the record, and in your own opinion, what do you think would be, what would you like to see happen in the house scene?
I'm going to say a
do you
few
think
things about the house scene. I've seen the house scene in Miami, South Beach, Atlanta, New York. I'd like to say LA. I haven't seen the house scene in LA, but from reports that I hear, what I see and hear out of the house scenes there, the drug element is there. But it is a more responsible, it's a more responsible crowd that's doing it. They're watching what they're doing. Are they getting high? Yes, they are. But they're being reasonable about it. It's also a good-looking crowd in those areas. What I see out of Jacksonville is a bunch of ate-up, grungy kids sweating their ass off, smelling like Vicks Vapor Rub, laying on the floor of the club, rubbing each other down, and just making it so apparent out like it's the coolest thing in the world because they're high. They're in the club and they're high, and they want everybody to know it. And that's stupid. You know, if the drug is enhancing the music, if it's making you feel better, if you're going to do it, you just got to be responsible about it. Come in, enjoy the night, enjoy the music, do that sort of thing. But don't put it out there for the whole friggin' world to know.
Right.
So many times a night we walk around here pulling people apart, you know, and the smell of Vicks Vapor Rub and the
blowing
room,
up
yeah, and that's, you know,
yeah.
it's just, it's actually, it's just gross. It's just good. It's not what house music, techno, that scene was ever intended to be about or anything else. We've had so much controversy, just besides the drug scene, out of the house crowd in particularly. And we'll say this off the record. You mind if I mention E Nations? Mm-hmm. Do we want to bring any more light to that son of a bitch? The house scene has been the most controversial thing that I've ever seen in the club business. It's I'll give you kind of a situation. We in here.
Gossipy is a gay club. Dirty is a grunge club.
We're in here on Saturday night, and we're doing 1,200, 1,500, 2,000 people, and these people just come in and party their ass off and have a good time and are into the shows, and it's just a fun, great night and everything else. I don't get up on Monday morning waiting to hear the controversy about the week before. The house scene is just so politically connected, and so they just yap and just bitching about everything and everybody and each other and all that sort of thing. And when I was coming up, all I heard about the house scene and the music and that sort of thing, it was about the music, it was about the love, it was about the unity. I don't see that. I don't see it out of these kids here in Jacksonville. I have in other areas.
You hear it.
Yeah, you hear them talking a lot of shit till it really comes down on it. Go on the internet on the E Nations and listen to that crap, that garb that goes on all the time. They talk about other people and cut them down and try to get them, literally try to hurt them economically and emotionally by the things that they say are just ugly. That's not what it's all about. It is about the music, and it is about the love, and it is about the unity. I've never growing up, went out to a club to party, and just to sit around and think of the bad things that were going on. I just couldn't wait to get out on Monday morning and say all the horrible things about what they thought about the clubs and the club owners and the promoters and the DJs and the people. And why all that? Why not just come, have a good time, dance, party, be a part of what's happening? Mm-hmm. We have been, we don't know that we've done a good or a bad thing in the house scene in Jacksonville by pulling it out of underground and bringing it commercial. But what we do know is, we've been called the socialist pigs, so to speak. We charge too much money for the kids to get in the door, and it's the big club owners that are in promoters and people find out where your money's going. They're stealing from you and all that sort of thing. That's crap. That comes out of people who have no idea whatsoever about what it takes to run an operation like this. You know, I have 60-some employees, big room, overhead. You know, I could go on for 30 minutes trying to tell you what it's like and what you have to pay for to do something like this. And we turn out to be the bad guy. The kids need to stop sometime and think. And I'm going to say this and probably make a lot of people mad. I don't want to, but that so-called god of a DJ that y'all are coming to see, and don't take me wrong, because I love a lot of these guys to death and very close friends with them, and they deserve everything they get, but they're expensive, and they're extremely business. They are contracts and deposits in advance, and airplanes, and generally first class, and won't stay in anything less than a 4- or 5-star hotel, and got to have ground transportation and food and beverages while they're here and everything else. It is expensive to bring one of these people here.
It's like having a concert.
It's not as bad.
Right.
You know, certain requirements on sound and lights and all of these sort of things.
Special mixers.
Right. It's incredible to bring them here. The music industry is a business. I don't care whether it's house music, rock and roll, easy listening, or whatever it is. It is a business. And these people are paid to come. And they're no different than any of the other people out there, the bands or any other entertainer you're going to bring. They have managers and agents and people that have to be taken care of. And that's why we charge sometimes what we charge to get through the thing. We've started a new light around here with our circus and Fridays, and actually started working with some of these people to take less money, to change some of those things.
Didn't like IC and Baby Ann and drop their prices.
Which, see, is what I'm saying, are the great people, and we love them. They're like family in Jacksonville. And it's not only them, it's Sandy and Magic Mike and those people that you see coming into Club 5 a lot. Are there a lot of them out there that if I asked to take less money to come over here would just fly right over the top of Jacksonville and head on to Miami? Yes, they would. But it's a business like anything else, people, you know, and we get run down in the ground so much for it.
That's the principle behind Circus and the low door cover, and
yeah,
kind of where you're going in that direction for that
Let's
night.
make it easier. Let's make it. Let's start supporting more of our local talent. We have a great deal of local talent here, and I want you to make sure you put that in there.
Oh yeah.
You know, we want to support that local talent. A lot of people have the name, but there's local talent around here that's equally as good.
Mm-hmm.
So, yes, that's a lot of what Circus is about right now.
Cool. Let's move on to Seduction really quickly and talk about, of course, I'm kind of privy to the whole beginning of all of that.
Sure. And you ought to say, when you said something about seduction, I got a smile on my face. We love seduction.
As of course that began, and it was a huge success for it has been for all of us from the very beginning. Yeah, literally overnight. It's been one of the most phenomenal promotions that I've worked with in this city, definitely by far. And
definitely what the city needed.
Absolutely, and so recently there's been controversy about that. Let's go back to where that started at. I guess at the beginning there was the slight controversy when we first began that you got in trouble for.
Well. There wasn't a lot of guidelines on what we kind of could or couldn't do. We're not an adult entertainment complex. We're basically putting on theatrical style acts on stage. Not a lot of customer contact with the shows that are going on. So we got to asking a lot of questions of what we could and we couldn't do, and we're basically told. We had a liaison down at JSO that helped us pretty much on the dress that we could wear. And I can't go in through this interview a lot about the dress because I have criminal charges pending at this point in time for it. So I don't want to talk a lot about it.
Right.
But we felt like what we were doing was within the means of the law and everything else. And actually we're a month away from our 2-year anniversary. For the past 2 years we've been doing the same thing. And then boom, the Saturday Night Seduction when they came in and raided us off. let's we'll cover what the arrests on Saturday nights have been over the past 2 years. Not long after we started the Saturday Night Seduction, I was arrested for what was called promoting pornography. And what that was our neighbors, Caribbean Connection, which has been big with our Saturday Night Seduction. We work very closely together in a lot of things that we do. Had a piercing booth set up in here. Young lady went up and got her nipple pierced in the piercing booth in the club, which at the time was a common practice. They used to do it at the Milk Bar, and a lot of the other clubs, Shaves and that sort of thing, had piercing booths set up and everything else. It just so happened that on that night, one of the 5's people saw it, deemed that it wasn't right, and made a pretty big deal out of it. Arrested myself, arrested the young lady that was being pierced, and the piercer. All the charges were dropped. Heck, I think by that Monday or just the Saturday night, by that Monday or Tuesday, all the charges on the thing was dropped. But that was the first incident. Since that time, we've stopped the piercing, and I think there's been some laws that have come up since then about what can be done in clubs and can't be done in clubs and that sort of thing. And that went away. Well, pretty much for the last 2 years, we've sat around here and just, our Saturday nights have been great. Massive crowds. The people are just so into the shows. The crowd itself is such a diverse crowd. And everybody's just come in, got along, had a great time, and just partied over it. The second arrest came with the Chippendale Dancers. And
that wasn't involving seduction, that was on Tuesday.
It wasn't involving seduction, but it leads up to seduction, right, and some things that happened. What we have found out since then, in our meeting with JSO last week, that some of the local exotic adult entertainment dance bars here in town had their attorneys write into JSO and said, hey, you come over here, you're watching us all the time, you've busted us several times, we're an adult entertainment complex, and there's chambers over there bringing in the Chippendale Dancers. It brought it to JSO's light. They decided that it was something that they wanted to come in and check out. They, in fact, did. They busted us, came in, took myself and the Chippendale Dancers to jail. There's been a lot of discussion where that was concerned over the adult entertainment licenses and all that sort of thing. I'm not an adult entertainment establishment. I don't want an adult entertainment license. My feelings were, it's the world famous Chippendale Dancers. You know, the room was basically filled with a lot of middle-aged women that were just out there partying and having a good time with the world famous Chippendale Dancers.
My brother's wife was there.
Huh?
My brother's wife was there.
Yeah, I mean, you wouldn't believe the people I knew. You wouldn't believe some of the wives of the people that I know that were out there. They came in and busted us. I made some statements in the press because I was upset about it, that it basically embarrassed Jacksonville. I still feel that it did. We got some national coverage off of this thing. We knew it was going to be. I made some statements that Jacksonville didn't need another embarrassment like the Elvis Presley issue. And for those of y'all who are reading this that don't know about the Elvis Presley issue, in the early 70s, late mid.
They've got the poster up down there at the Florida Theater in the window.
Yeah.
For when he played.
He came to town and
Elvis. It was early on. Actually.
Yeah.
It was pretty early on.
Yeah, it was the young Elvis.
Yeah.
The old Elvis. It was the young Elvis. It was during the time when he was known as Elvis the Pelvis.
Right.
And he came here to do a show and got up on stage and did what he is now world famous for, and shook, and JSO arrested him and ran him out of town and asked him never to come back to Jacksonville. I just didn't want to see that happening again, you know. I said, we're a city, and then these are some of the things I said in the press. Probably shouldn't say it again, but You know, we're such an up and coming city, and the football team, we're looking to get conventions here, and that's from a businessman's point of view. We want conventions in this town. It brings so much revenue here. Everybody's fighting to get a Super Bowl here. Super Bowl committee told them when they were here, you got to have more hotels and you got to have more nightlife and stuff. I always just felt that things like this embarrassed us. You know, it was going to make people go, going to Jacksonville, you can't do this, you can't do that. You know, something as simple as a Chippendale dancer, so on and so forth. I'd also just spent about 16 hours in that lovely jail downtown. When I got out and the news reporters and everything jumped in my face, I was a little upset and a little mad and probably shouldn't have spurted off like I did. But I did. And I think that upset Jacksonville some. The big key, I think, that what upset them was that one of the news media people, as we talked about in the past, was interviewing Lieutenant Hartley, who was in charge of ICE and narcotics, and said something to Lieutenant Hartley as if to say, you think the Chippendales are bad, you ought to see what's going on around there on Saturday night. Lieutenant Hartley made the comment, well, if that's the way Mr. Chambers feels about that, we're going to come in and check him out on Saturday night. You know, he's been in compliance all this time. We haven't had any problems with it. We're going to go down and check him out. That was a statement that was never made from me. That was a statement that was made from a news reporter trying to create that controversy and accomplish it. Because the next arrest came approximately a week later on Saturday night. We're in here doing the shows. Towards the end of the evening, once again, JSO came in. They were once again in masks and, you know, bulletproof vests and all that sort of thing. And we think it's a little bit of overplay. And they busted us once again. Took myself and 11 of our staff members from Saturday Night Seduction. Well, it was the Saturday Night Seduction cast as well as the Club 5 dancers. And we all went down and spent the night in jail again. What was a big thing for me then is one, this is a lot of a theatrical presentation on stage. Has nothing to do with wanting adult entertainment, licenses and everything else. But for me, it was my staff now that was getting busted. We're all downtown, we're all in jail. These kids are concerned and upset. I've been through it a number of times. I can kind of breeze my way through there sometimes now. I know that there's people out there that are going to take care of me and stuff, and I just try to assure them, but I felt really bad for them. You know, that they were having to go downtown and go through it. The attitude with them, however, was we were all nervous and scared at first, but they were basically there because they were doing something that we all believed in. And that was good, and that it overcame that whole feeling of being down there in that horrible jail. And since that time, have you know, continued to keep that attitude. Since that time, though, because of the way I felt about them and everything else, we felt that the club, myself, and JSO are, you know, kind of at a brick wall with each other in that thing. We didn't want that anymore. Actually, what happened next was that they came in on Monday and did what they called darting the place, which is a drug abatement reaction team. And we'll find that out later, exactly what it stands for. But basically what that is they come in and they dart the building, and what they're looking for is code violations, whether it be electrical, building, or otherwise, in an effort to close that establishment down. They've deemed that that establishment is a nuisance, and they're looking for a way to shut it down. They've taken that program out of what was the crack houses and things like that. That's where this program came in, and it was directly targeted at those sort of things, and they've kind of stepped it up one more step into some business. It's not myself, some other people this happened to. That whole horrific scene in the way that it was handled and everything else, it was just like things were out of control. The paper came out immediately the next day and said Club 5 closed for code violations. This is at 5 o'clock in the morning. My phone starts ringing. I had never received any paperwork, been told I was getting shut down, what this situation was about. They came in here with 4 inspectors and 4 police officers and went through the whole building and all that sort of thing, and basically left and never told me what was going on.
Mainly they told you to come sit in your office and wait.
Mm-hmm. And they never came up and talked to me. But literally, they wouldn't release the information on what the problems were, the violations, and that sort of thing. We had to send a team of attorneys actually down to the city to demand that information to get it out of them, so we could find out what the problems were. So all that was just kind of a fiasco and handled wrong. Staff getting arrested, that sort of thing. So it was decided at that point in time through some people that I'm close to that we needed to call and request a meeting. We called, and Sheriff Glover was gracious enough that he allowed us to come down and meet with him. He did it in a real timely fashion, got us in there, and his key people around him. Lieutenant Hartley was one of those people. Chief Bennett, who was over this area, was one of those people. And we met for about 2 hours, had a great meeting, basically opened up some lines of communication with each other. I am meeting with him once at the, when I say meeting with him, we're communicating once a week. Myself and Chief Bennett, as far as community complaints are concerned, and what the community has to say and things that I can do to better help the community in what they want. And myself and Lieutenant Hartley are talking once a week about things that we can do better to improve the drug situations, and any questions I may have of, in pushing that envelope, what we can and cannot do, and things of that nature. Hartley's also coming out to help train with our staff on better ways to cite the problems of the drugs and those issues to help him out. I think the whole thing in here is that the perception is not the reality. And between the media, as we've talked, and everything else, perception is it is running rampant around here when it actually is not. I don't think Club 5 is any different than any other club out there. It's just if they want the public to know what's going on, they come to Club 5 to get it done because of the media. And they know I'm going to talk, and they know that it's going to make headlines. So,
correct.
But I want to kind of say this just so that I can end up that whole series and fiasco that we went through and everything else. And we did a lot of this on the news and stuff. But I really am encouraged and feel good that it's kind of a happy ending to all of that. Once again, Sheriff Glover was great in putting us together, determining both sides of the thing. It was almost like we were all sitting there bickering at each other, and he took us and got us together and got us working. And I sound like a politician here, but basically for a better Jacksonville and a better community and so on and so forth. And it's not even really a happy ending. I think it's just a great new beginning for both of us. We are the #1 club in town. We draw the biggest crowds. We are controversial in pushing that envelope in what we do. And they basically told us in that meeting that, we're not the source of the problem, but we're the gathering place. And, we're the biggest of all of that. And in kind of ending this, I'll tell you a big thing that came out of this whole meeting. And there really was a point in that meeting where a lot of it's handled, it's very professional and very mediated, so to speak, in a meeting like that. They pretty much said they didn't so much care about our Thursday nights, and they really didn't care so much about our Saturday nights, as long as we were within the laws of what we do on our Saturday nights. They were concerned about. they said they were concerned about our Friday nights, and they were concerned about that element that came in here on Friday night, and they're concerned about that element because of the drug situation. And they said it was not only me on Friday night, but it was 618 on Saturday night. We had those crowds, and they said that when 70% of the people, this was their statement, when 70% of the people coming to that club are either on that designer drug, looking for that designer drug, or selling that designer drug, and those people knowing that they can find it there, they said that is the problem. And that goes back to everything that we've discussed already. Kids, that is not what the house scene is about. It's about the music. It's about the love. It's about the unity. It's about those things. It's not about the drug. And Jacksonville is going to hurt itself really bad by letting it go to where it's going. They need to get out of it. They need to be more responsible, and they need to take it back to what the roots of it were originally all about.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, and please omit this if it's out of line in any way, shape, or form. But to put in perspective how big or little the situation is, when you met with Sheriff Glover, he had no idea what was exactly going on here?
Sheriff Glover runs one of the largest sheriff's departments in the country. Has more land mass to cover than anybody in the country. He has a large department. Sheriff Glover, I would say in a number of situations, he's kind of like we are here. I have key people around me that take care of certain things for me. Is he aware? Is he briefed on the situations? Yes, he is. How fully involved was he? You know, I'm not that big. I don't want to say I'm that big, but I'm not that big. Once again, it's like I said, man, he was gracious enough that when we called, he knew that there was a problem going on. He knew that he could help remedy that problem. He knew that he could make 5 Points in Jacksonville a better area by doing this sort of thing, by opening that up and calming all this down. And that's what he's about. That's what he does. And he does it well. So,
how do you feel about the particular media coverage that this last event caused? What's your take on everything that happened, and what kind of actions are you gonna do you plan anything against it for all the? I mean, for instance, the Times-Union reporting that the club was closed down. Number one. Number two, that employees were arrested for serving alcohol to minors and selling ecstasy. And then Folio, aside from the news media coverage, which mainly gets it from the paper, Folio reporting that you were arrested a third time for the violations. These type of, these incidences that never happened or are completely untrue. Is there?
And the Times-Union also putting it on the internet as well.
Right. How are those problems affecting you? How are you gonna approach them?
They are affecting me. I actually thought at first that they weren't going to affect me that bad, but they have affected me bad. I don't want to say what my actions are going to be at this point in time. I have not spoke with Foley, but I have spoke with the paper on a number of occasions. And hoped that they would have printed a retraction to what they said, because they did say they were working behind the scene more than they were in front of the scene on just actually what was happening. And they did report that Club 5 was closed to code violations, which was totally untrue. We never closed. They never closed us down. They reported they were pulling our meters off the wall or something of that nature, and that we were going to be shut down. None of that ever took place. We did get an injunction against the city. I think all those things were in the works behind the scene, but once again, they never came to me and said, hey, here's what we're doing, here's what we're going to do, until after the fact that the article came out.
Right. There were news briefs printed that the injunctions happening, taking place, and I did see those on the internet.
And that is true. They were happening. But did it ever happen? No. Did the club ever get closed down?
They did report that Club
No.
5 got the injunction that the judge ordered that Club 5 could stay open, but that was after the fact that they reported that it was closed.
Exactly.
What about regarding the employee situation?
They reported in there that besides the cast members and myself being arrested, that 3 others were arrested for serving alcohol to minors. That is untrue. There were people arrested, underage drinkers arrested that night, but it's generally a very typical situation because we're an 18 and up club. If you get someone under the age of 21, they're on a date or something, and their boyfriend will hand them their drink. When that's spotted, it's generally us that's seeing it, and we take the people out of here and have them cited and trespassing from the property. And that's the only thing that took place. It was not any of my employees.
But that's on a regular basis also. I mean, that's
Well,
not,
you hate to say it's on a regular
well,
basis,
I mean, not,
but it's
something
part,
that happens, though.
it's part
and
of what
it's not
we do
because
around
of
here
what-
in daily business. We have procedures and policies in place and how we handle those situations. It's been true in any club since the beginning of
Right.
clubs.
So
you
a
know?
situation, you're right, exactly.
Regulation
A
for drinking.
situation like that happened, but it wasn't an employee of Club 5. It wasn't
No,
anyone
not
that
like the
actually.
paper stated.
Yeah, it wasn't how the paper worded it.
Mhm.
So, or what about how does Holyoke get reports that you were? Or how can they? Where do they get print that you were arrested a 3rd time for the code violation?
I have no idea.
You haven't spoken to anyone over there yet.
No, I have not. No,
Do you
it's the media. It's the sensationalism of it.
Mhm.
What makes people read it? Is it false? Does it hurt me? It has hurt me. The first week out of that ad that we were closed. I mean, we saw it climb Thursday, Friday, and Saturday night real strong. We've gone back on the radio and done our advertising and marketing stuff to let the public know that we're back open. We've seen it coming back last week. Our Thursdays were back up, our Fridays back up, our Saturdays are back up, but not to the level that they were. And it's going to take a few weeks to, really
So
get it
everyone
out
will
there.
know.
Yeah, that we're okay, we're doing business as normal, and everything's all right.
Right. Get through it all. Let's talk about, there's only a couple other things that I really want to talk to you about, and then if you want to say any kind of closing statement, I guess, as far as anything you want Jacksonville to know. But I wanted to have you list or detail any of the contributions to the area that you think Club 5 gives or has.
community-wise.
Like sort of what Club 5 does for at least even the local community, even for this area.
It's so much of what the general public and the community doesn't see because it's not that sensationalism. It doesn't make the headlines. But we are very involved. We're a member of the 5 Points Association, the 5's Arts Association. We are big contributors to both of those things. We live here in the community, myself and my family. We are a part of the community as much as anybody else is, and that's when I go back and say that the perception is not reality. We on a regular basis at the club always do things to raise money for the arts. A lot of times people come to us, such as the Cancer Society, an upcoming event, or it's probably going to happen before this thing, where we'll raise our door charge, and so much of that, or that money that we raise, it goes to the Cancer Society, just on one of the events that are coming up. I'm trying to think of, we did
You supplied your venue for Dorcas Drake.
Dorcas Drake, a big event when the city turned they're back on her. And I don't want to get into political things there, but I got interviewed through some of that stuff, and it was like they were trying to make this big controversial thing about the Dorcas Drake thing, and the city doing their own thing, and not wanting the Dorcas Drake thing going, and why would I do it? And, it's things like that you stop and you say, well, it's not about us. It's about those kids. It's about those babies. It's Christmas time, and that's the only toys they're going to get. you know, it shouldn't have been a controversial thing, but it involved Club 5 and Dorcas Strait. What better place to do it at, you know? And what did we do that day, you know? Like 5,000 kids came through here and got toys that they wouldn't have other gotten. I mean, I'm glad. We have done the large AIDS fundraisers here and have more of those things planned. Big sponsor in World AIDS Days and local AIDS foundations that we have contributed to. I hate to say that I always got an open pocketbook for it, but you know, there are things that we believe in, that we want to see happen, and we want to be contributors to those things. And you hope that it's what goes around comes around kind of situations where those are concerned. But we're very involved in 5 Points, very involved in taking it where the plans have.
If I'm not mistaken, again, correct me if I'm wrong, but just the club itself being open in this neighborhood, being open at night, has substantially cut down on crime, where there used to be a lot of the crash and grabs or crash and
we discussed a lot of that in Sheriff Glover's office the other day. But since we've been open here, if you remember 9 years ago, before Club 5 opened here, a lot of this area was boarded up. It wasn't, you know, anything. And I know firsthand through friends of mine who own property in here. Hell, he couldn't give the property away, you know, as far as trying to find renters and that sort of thing. And now there's just a waiting list of people getting in here, and economically, you know, it's brought the rent up and things of that nature. And just better things planned for 5 Points. I mean, it's getting, as the committee says, bigger, brighter, and safer all the time.
Let's see if there's anything else. I guess the only real thing, other than any closing statements that you might have that you want to say, is just what do you hope for the future of Club 5 and for the Jacksonville club scene? What would you like to? Do you have any plans for it, or sort of utopian kind of vision for it all? To, you know.
As you know, when we sit around here and we talk about Club 5, vision is a big word that we use, you know, and you gotta have that vision. We are trapped over here sometimes on a little kind of behind the times issues with the things that we want to do. There are other nights that I want to open Club 5. There are other promotions, entertainment, things that I want to bring to the city. We've been here 2 years, and I don't want to say I want to unload all of those things at one time, but we are a member of this community, myself and my family. We've fallen in love with Jacksonville since we've been here. It's been a magic carpet ride since we've been here. I love Club 5. I'm not ever going to let anything happen to Club 5. We're going to work within the boundaries that we have to work within to present the best entertainment that we can possibly give Jacksonville here. Pausing for a second because there's something I want to say. Damn, I had to do it. Stop it. We're going to work within the boundaries that we can work within to bring the best entertainment that we can possibly bring here. We have a lot of concerts planned for the next year. We're finding that the people, the national acts that we bring to Jacksonville, they don't like most of the venues in town, the Coliseum and places like that. But we find that we'll put them in this room, and we'll put a couple of thousand people in front of them, and they fall in love with this old theater and playing for a crowd that's just packed in here and stuff. So a lot of good things playing there. A lot of good entertainment that we're going to bring. Where that's concerned, we're going to continue to work on the house crowd. hopefully all the controversy that's out there about them and that sort of thing, that they'll wise up. That the hello, this is him.
There we go.
We're hoping that the house scene will wise up and that we can continue to bring the best entertainment, DJs from around the world with Divine Fridays and Circus. And then Saturday night and the concerts and stuff that we've done here has brought us national exposure. As Jacksonville gets more into it, the shows just get better and better. The crowds get better and better. We have ETV, who we've been talking with, want to come down here and do a wild on Saturday Night Seduction in Jacksonville for their series Wild On that we're really excited about and trying to put all that together right now.
You get that tape out of your VCR? You still got that tape Aaron sent you, right? That
Yeah,
I gave you the video tape.
yeah, but I'll try to dig that thing up. And we're going to end up getting national exposure over it. And we do that not only because we run a business here and we all make a living off of it, and our 60 employees that we have to watch after and that sort of thing, but we do it for Jacksonville. We do it to create that nightlife in Jacksonville and get that exposure that there are things going on in Jacksonville. And Jacksonville is a great place to come, not only to live, but to visit and vacation and Super Bowls and conventions. And we look at all of those things every day we're here. We are, all we've ever wanted to be is a good corporate citizen. And that's what that's about. That's where the business side of it is. We want to grow, we want Jacksonville to grow, and we all want to prosper and do the things that we enjoy doing without upsetting anyone.
Because I want to put, of course, I'll probably include this part with Xanadu right after the whole house thing with being
and I want you to take everything that we've talked about here and put it into a segment that you do so well.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make any sense? And this is, we're not usually
right.
But we've talked a lot about the house here, which I'm particularly upset about right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm upset about it because I don't think it's us. I think it's a fucking irresponsible kid out there, and all the controversy and the talk and the stuff, the Thomas issues and all that sort of thing that goes on. And I don't mean to sound harsh about it, but I don't mind sounding harsh about it right now. They need to fucking straighten up.
Mm-hmm.
You can address those issues when you're accountable.
Definitely. Which I have before.
Continue to do it until something's resolved.
But if you've since taken over the old Milk Bar space, the former home to Milk Bar, which eventually became 618, and turned that into an after-hours club for that house scene. Have you had any major problems down there with that? So with that, I mean, you've had the problems here. Have you had any of the problems, similar problems down there? And if not, what makes that different?
I could build a lot of hype around Xanadu's right now. But no, I haven't had those problems down there. And I haven't had those problems down there because I haven't done the business down there that I have anticipated doing. And I haven't done the business down there that I anticipated doing because I left an element out of it. And that was not realizing that we built that club that we were going to be totally dedicated to the house scene. We took somebody like Daryl Duke, who's very respected in the music side of it, and put him down there. We put Michelle, a.k.a. Freak Girl, who does our Friday nights here, down there to book the entertainment down there, and is very respected in that music industry. We went in there, and I'll be totally truthful with you. I pretty much went into that location because that location is like they say, your business is location, location, location. It had been the Milk Bar for many years. It's a legendary space. You don't ask anybody in the city, you know, where the old milk bar is and stuff, and that's pretty much how we give directions down there. It's the old milk bar in the basement of the Versus building. And everybody, oh yeah, I know what's that. But I took that location because I knew that when they came out of there, that everybody in town was going to want to do something with that space. And it was a good business move for me to be able to take that space and do something with it. Through the construction of it, it ended up turning into a labor of love. And I spent a lot more money down there than I ever anticipated spending down there. The room came out beautiful, and that was with the help of a lot of people. And if you want to take it from there and mention
Right.
some names about putting that thing together, it came out better than we ever anticipated. What we did not anticipate was that we thought we were building a room for the house scene, for that music, that most of the after-hours clubs, or probably all the after-hours clubs that we've seen in this town, were small, fly-by-night operations that went in there and just took a room and put some mediocre light and sound in there and opened the doors and let the people in. What they opened the doors and let in was all of the 8-ups, and that's what made them popular. The drug influences are strong in those places, and that's where the people went. And what we didn't realize is that opening Xanadu's and running it like a business and keeping those elements out of there, that it was going to affect our business. We thought that that element of the house crowd that didn't want to be around the 8-ups, that wanted to be about the music and wanted to be about a nice room that they were comfortable in, and everything else would be there and support it. And it just hasn't happened. So I guess the answer to your question is no, I haven't had a lot of problems down there, a lot of controversy going on down there, or, you know, the police departments and that sort of, sheriff's department and that sort of thing. One, it's not happening down there, and I'm not doing the business that I expected to do down there. But that's all about to change, and I won't go into saying what I'm fixing to do. But
Plans in the works.
plans are in the works. Plans are in the works.
Any sort of anything that you want to cover that you think that we haven't gone over in the interview that you want to say or let people know?
I would like for you somewhere in there to work our warm feelings about Saturday night and the people that come here. You know, white, black, gay, straight. You know,
Red
leather,
kids, goth
lace,
kids, yeah.
It's like
everybody.
a Studio
You know,
54 atmosphere.
Right, it is. Totally.
rednecks, businessmen, blue collar, white collar. You know, that whole 9 yards. You know,
Cowboy hats,
the young, the
military
trendy, and the
uniforms,
curious. You know?
Yeah, right, exactly.
And say something like that, yeah.
Yeah.
And how they all come together, and it's like a melting pot, and they all gel, and it's just a beautiful, fun evening.
Mm-hmm. Definitely, because that's what it is. And like I said, I think
It
it
is.
does. I think people who show up to Saturday and watch what it is could possibly realize that if they had an open mind, if they had, were open-minded enough about the situation. Seeing as how it is a controversial subject matter.
I didn't touch on it, but I should have, and I was trying not
Well,
to
we
go
can
after
now.
the rest of the clubs too much, but it is what nightlife is about today. It's not, and I don't want to mention any other clubs, but it's not opening the door, turning on the music and turning on the lights, and everybody stands around all night and hangs out in the club. It is about entertainment, and you got to be on top of it, and you have to offer the crowds more nowadays. You've got to give them that visual effect in the room. You know, they can't leave you not being entertained, not being, just in awe of what the hell went on in the place.
Mm-hmm. Every other nightclub around the world, major nightclub has already been,
Every
has been
other
doing
club
that.
that you know and you hear about is doing it, and we're just glad to be doing it in Jacksonville.
Moving up that evolutionary social
Yeah,
scale. Do you want to touch on or mention anything about about your opinions on the other clubs that have done pretty much doing what we do? Like, for instance, Options, who's doing the Fiery Whip show. Did you see that in Folio?
The only thing that I would say on that is that
Girls.
we brought the house scene out of the warehouses and basically into the mainstream. We've had a great deal of success with it. Look around you, all the other clubs are trying to do it, or trying to copy what we did. Our Saturday nights is a hard thing to copy, but there are people out there that are attempting to do it. The biggest form of flattery for us over here, and the most joy we find out of it is that they're out there trying to imitate us, and that's what it's about. Always when you're on top, there's always somebody trying to knock your ass off of it. But we know that. We wake up every day ready.
Or at least jump on the train.
Trying to hitch a ride. Trying to knock us off of it, but we're always ready for it. And I said it in there, but I'll say it again, and if you can get it in there, however you want to put it, that it's just the whole talented group of people that are around us that makes this place, mesh and makes it what it is, and it really is. I mean, I ain't stupid not to know that. I'm an old man. Take it back and run that down. Fit it in wherever you want, but all the controversy that these kids think that they're creating by talking about people like myself and Danny and the clubs that we own and operate, Michelle and Matt Richardson and all that sort of thing, they're not hurting those people. It's not that the bad things you're saying about you. It's in this business. It's or in the entertainment business itself. I mean, you've heard it before. It's not always what they're saying about you, just as long as they're talking about you. If we approach it like that, it's the industry. It's the music. It's the nightlife. It's the scene that they're hurting. There's other people out there listening that don't understand who these people are that are saying that thing, and we do know who they are and understand the source in which it's coming from. But it hurts our families, it hurts our friends. It hurts the people who truly want to see this business grow and Jacksonville grow and prosper and everything else. And these people that say that stuff, they need to get a life, or they need to get involved, and be a part of making it better instead of being out there being a part of making it worse.